You are a little bit lower than I am on Devon Achane. Achane, I have at 13th overall in my rankings. We're now seeping into round 2. You have him at 19, so a little bit into the little back end, mid round 2, which is fine. We can have differing opinions on Devon Achane. That's getting a little nitpicky, but why do you instead, though, have Raheem Mostert all the way down at 93 when I have him at just like the end of round 4, beginning of round 5? If you're lower on Achane, why are you even lower on Raheem Mostert? Is it just regression, or is there something else that you expect to happen?
So for starters here, Brad, I do have to hold your feet to the fire on this one because having both Dolphins running backs, I know they've performed masterfully for fantasy this year, but having two running backs from the same team ranked inside the top 50, I think is a little bit suspect. It'll be very hard for both of them to sustain the efficiency that we've seen allow them to eat. Maybe not. Maybe Mike McDaniels is just that guy and everything's going to play out similarly as it did this year, but I wouldn't bet on it. And so for when I was going through thinking about, like I said, this is vibes based for me. This reminds me very much of a 2021 Javonte Williams versus Melvin Gordon type of debate, where we had Javonte going as that 2-3 turn pick, and we had Melvin Gordon going much later, even though they were coming off of just this 50-50 even time split. And for me, I was fortunately bailed out by the Javonte injury, unfortunately for him, and then Melvin Gordon ended up getting cut and nobody won. But to make that point, to bring that home, is basically to say that I think Raheem Mostert at his age, as the sort of descending slope and Achane's on his ascending arc, I think there may still be some risk that Miami does bring in another running back, again, due to Mostert's age. So I think there's a little bit of uncertainty there for Mostert. I'd be happy to move him up if we get to August and it's just Achane and Mostert. But for now, if I was drafting today, I'd have a lot more confidence in Achane than I would in Mostert. Though not quite so much confidence as you seem to have in Achane, mainly just because I'm a stickler for size and durability. Achane did get nicked up a decent amount this year, so I have some concerns there for him as opposed to a Jonathan Taylor or a Breece Hall or Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, I hear you on the size. Achane showed off his electric speed this year, and I think that that's what makes this Miami team so dynamic. Is they've got speed everywhere, and you don't know as a defense where they're going to go with it. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is going to be the number one read, but Jalen Waddle also got an obscene amount of target share this year. Raheem Mostert, the reason why I had him, like, Mostert was running back 3 this year in terms of best ball value rating. Obviously, a league winner in his own right, over 20 touchdowns this season. But I agree with you. I don't think that this is going to be sustainable. That's why I don't have him in the first round, second round. We have our major concerns about Raheem Mostert and his age. You mentioned that. And Mostert got nicked up, and he has a history of injuries for sure. And Achane as well. These are guys who were seldom healthy at the same time. But when they were still both very fantasy viable. And I want pieces of this Miami backfield because we've seen, and this was a mistake not a mistake. I wouldn't call it a mistake because I was invested more than the market in the Miami Dolphins backfield. I had like 13% Jeff Wilson. I had 13% Mostert and like 13% Achane. And I was just split. I had between every draft, I probably had 40% combined. I one out of every 3 drafts, I had one of those running backs.
But, yeah, I was all in on the Jeff Wilson side of that.
But we knew something was going to hit. And we knew something was going to hit. And unfortunately, it just wasn't Jeff Wilson. But we knew that it was going to be an absolute factory for fantasy points. So that's what I'm like putting my chips in on is, offenses that we definitely know are going to manufacture fantasy points. And if they do bring in another running back, so be it. But in round 5, like Raheem Mostert isn't going to crush you if you miss on a Raheem Mostert. We missed on Christian Watson this past year in round 3, round 4, and both Best Ball Mania winners had him on their teams. So yes, structural reasons and blah blah blah, but like you can afford to take a hit in some of these rounds. You can afford to take a loss, and I'd rather take shots on these highly efficient, proven track record, fantasy point factory teams, and especially ones that are willing to run the ball when they get close to the line of scrim, when they get to close to the end zone. So give me Mostert, give me Achane above wherever they're going to be. Although there's been some sharps in the industry who are like, Achane at the 1-2 turn, Achane, and I'm like, oh man, that's put a little spice on it, but we'll find out if that's where some of these, as the tides turn throughout the offseason. It would not surprise me if Achane becomes a first round pick by the time we get into September.
It's possible, but I won't have any.